Hello, my name is Jess, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about restorative justice. What is restorative justice? That's a really good question. Restorative justice is a way to address and handle conflict as needed. It is a way for offenders and victims to come together and resolve issue. Restorative justice is not about passing judgment, but a way to address harm, have meaningful accountability, provide a safe environment for dialogue, and meeting the needs of everybody involved. Restorative justice practices have shown to improve performance at school, at the workplace, and build stronger relationships with your peers, family, and in the community around you. There are many ways to use the restorative process. These include restorative circles, mediation, and/or restorative panels. Let's talk a little bit about each of these. Restorative circles are about supporting those in conflict. It brings together all parties involved. This includes those who have acted out, the victim or victims, family members, and even members of the community that were affected, whether it was directly or indirectly. Circles are a way to have open and positive dialogue, to work as a team to find solutions that satisfies all parties. The process ends when the group has found a mutual compromise or create a plan moving forward. What does this all mean? Well, let's look at an example. John and Jack are constantly interrupting class by yelling and threatening each other. The class comes to a sudden halt every time this happens. School staff often has to enter the room to help de-escalate the situation. The teacher calls for a circle process. She invites all the students from the block to take part. Students are each given a chance to tell John and Jack how their actions are affecting everyone in the classroom. Some students are scared or nervous to go to class because they fear of being caught in the middle of John and Jack. Some students have requested a course change because of the anxiety they feel before going to that class. Other school staff are also invited to share their experiences with John and Jack and how their actions in school are affecting them. The school resource officer is also invited to the circle. He shares what legal ramifications could happen if these behaviors continue. Another method of the restorative process is called mediation, which is a structured, interactive process where a third party assists those parties in conflict to help them find a solution that both parties are satisfied with. The mediator manages the interactions between parties and facilitates open communication. Well, how would this apply to the average middle school student, you ask? Let's look at another example. Mike and Joe have never been what you would call friends. In fact, they downright do not like each other. The other day, Mike swears he heard Joe mumble something under his breath when he walked by. This led to a physical fight in the hallway. The school asked an outside agency to help with mediation. Through this process, Mike and Joe were able to talk about their interactions with each other and their previous issues. With the guided conversation, they were able to make a plan for both of them to be successful in the hallways. Sometimes a person may be asked to speak with a restorative panel. The panel members are volunteers from your community and can suggest and work with you to come up with a restorative process designed just for you. The goal is to help a person have a better understanding of the damage they have done, get back to the people or community affected, and learn new skills to avoid these situations again in the future. Some agreed upon restorative practices have included writing letters of apology, volunteering in the community, restitution payments, research papers, anger management, life or skill classes, and so much more. Victims are always asked to partake in the restorative panel. It is important for those who have been affected by the actions of others to have a chance to be heard and get a sense of closure. Let's look at an example. Michelle left the lunchroom for a minute and forgot to bring her bag with her. When she returned, she saw that somebody had gone through her bag and her new iPhone was missing. She reports this to school staff. They check the cameras and see that another student named Rachel walked by, stopped, and reached into her bag and took her phone. Rachel is approached by staff and admits to taking the phone without permission. Rachel returns the phone, but the screen has been broken. She agrees to see the Community Restorative Justice panel to make amends for her actions. The panel members reach out to Michelle to see what she wanted as an outcome. Michelle asked for restitution, to fix the screen on her phone, a letter of apology, and the chance to speak to Rachel at the restorative panel meeting to tell her how she felt after her belongings were stolen. Michelle was invited to the restorative panel and talked directly to Rachel. Rachel admits she just saw the phone and is not sure why she took it, but did. The screen was broke while the phone was loose in her backpack. After listening to Michelle speak, Rachel agrees to pay back the cost of repairs to the screen in a letter of apology. Restorative process leads to recognition, understanding, empowerment, and positive change. It provides victims and offenders with more satisfaction than a traditional justice setting. It reduces the chance of reoffending and improves the mental health of victims, many of whom are often wondering, why me? Is it going to happen again? Or how am I going to pay for damages that my insurance will not cover? It also cuts down the cost in the court systems. If the restorative process doesn't work, you can end up going to court, paying fees, having your family upset with you, or even be on probation. Next time something happens in your classroom, your home, or in your community, think about the restorative process and how it could benefit you. Let's take a look at one more example, and you can decide what restorative practice would be best. Candy and Stephen used to be a couple. Stephen dumped Candy for a new girl, Veronica. Since then, Candy has been terribly upset and has continued to harass Veronica whenever she sees her at school, in the community, or on social media. Stephen has asked Candy several times to leave Veronica alone, but Candy is very hurt and angry with Stephen. Recently, Candy hacked Stephen's Snapchat and used the school's Chromebook and sent some very mean messages to Veronica, saying things like Stephen was breaking up with Veronica to date Candy again, and he was going camping with Candy and her family, and he was dumping Veronica. Now Veronica is very angry with Stephen, and Stephen is furious with Candy. He keeps telling Veronica that he did not send those messages, but Veronica doesn't know what to believe. The next day at school, Stephen spots Candy in the hallway near her locker. He runs to catch up with her, and he pushes her against her locker, and Candy hits her head. She grabs her backpack and hits Stephen with it, knocking him over. They've been screaming at each other and calling each other names while everyone watches. The teachers run over to break up the fight, and they both get sent to the office, and their parents are called. Let's talk about some questions now about this situation. Who do you think the victim in this story is? Who do you think the offender is? What do you think will happen to Candy and Stephen? What do you think should happen to Candy and Stephen? Besides Candy, Stephen, and Veronica, who else was affected by this situation, and how were they? Which restorative practice do you think would be best for the situation? And please explain why. And finally, what could happen if the restorative process fails and these behaviors continue?